It all started so innocently. Mark and I were colleagues, thrown together on a high-stakes project that required long hours and close collaboration. We were a great team, complementing each other's strengths and compensating for each other's weaknesses. The long nights working side by side inevitably led to personal conversations, shared laughter, and eventually a brief, passionate flame. But I wasn't looking for anything serious. I'd been burned before, and I wasn't ready to dive into another relationship. So I ended things. I thought it was the right decision, the mature decision. Mark seemed to take it well, or at least he didn't protest much. We agreed to stay friends, to keep things professional, and for a while, we did. Life moved on. The project concluded successfully, and we returned to our regular routines. I was proud of how we handled everything, thinking we had navigated the tricky waters of workplace romance without any major issues. But then, Mark started dating someone new. At first, I didn't think much of it. But as I saw them together more and more, something inside me twisted. It wasn't jealousy, I told myself. It was concern. I began to notice little things, ways he seemed happier, more engaged. He was different, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it should have been me making him feel that way. So I started to interfere, subtly at first. A missed email here, a miscommunication there. Just little things to remind him that I was still around, still important. But as his relationship with his new partner grew stronger, my tactics grew bolder. I began scheduling inconvenient meetings, assigning him the most tedious tasks, and criticizing his work more harshly than usual. I knew it was petty, but I couldn't stop myself. Every time I saw them together, laughing or sharing a private moment, it felt like a stab to the heart. I convinced myself that if I could make his work life difficult enough, maybe their relationship would suffer. One day, I overheard a conversation between Mark and his new partner. They were discussing a weekend getaway, something romantic and intimate. That was my breaking point. I orchestrated a crisis, something that required immediate attention and, conveniently, Mark's full involvement. It worked. He had to cancel their plans, and I felt a grim satisfaction. But my satisfaction was short-lived. The crisis had been resolved, but the fallout was severe. Mark was stressed, overworked, and it showed. He began making mistakes, missing deadlines. Our colleagues noticed, and whispers started. I realized that in my quest to drive a wedge between him and his partner, I was also damaging his professional reputation. The final straw came when Mark confronted me. He was exhausted and hurt, and he demanded to know why I was making his life so difficult. The pain in his eyes was unmistakable. It was in that moment that I saw the full extent of my actions. I had become someone I didn't recognize, someone who let pettiness and jealousy drive her to cruelty. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the conversation over and over in my mind. Mark's words echoed in my head, and I realized how unfair I had been to him, to myself, and even to his new partner. It wasn't about him moving on. It was about my inability to let go. I had to accept that our fling was over, and that he deserved to be happy, even if it wasn't with me. The next day, I apologized to Mark. It was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do, but it was necessary. I admitted to my behavior and promised to stop interfering. I couldn't undo the damage I had caused, but I could start making amends. Mark was gracious, more than I deserved, and though our friendship was strained, there was a glimmer of hope that it might heal in time. I learned a hard lesson about letting go and about the kind of person I wanted to be. It was time to move on, to let Mark be happy, and to find my own path forward. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And in the end, it was the right thing to do.